All right, so what do you guys know about interest? Do you know anything about interest? Have you ever heard of interest before? Maybe? Caleb?
It's something that you're into, or...
Yeah, you're right. You can have interests, right? Something that you are interested in. This is a little different, okay? We're talking about simple interest. We're talking about money. Do you guys know how this relates to money? Anybody know? How many of you have a bank account? You put money in the bank. Okay? Do you know that the bank pays you to put your money there? Did you know that? Okay, that's kind of the point of having a savings account. I mean, besides the fact that if you put your money in the bank, you're less likely to just spend it on random things, right? But when you put your money in the bank, they pay you interest. Okay? So they don't pay you a ton of money. It's not like you're going to get rich. Okay? But they give you something. Okay? When you put your money in the bank, you earn an interest rate. Anybody know why they pay you interest? Okay, they pay you interest because when you put your money in the bank, you give them the okay to use your money. Did you know that? Okay, so when you go to the bank and you put your money there, they don't just roll it up in a little ball and mark it with your name and leave it sit there and put it in a little box just for you. Okay, they take your money and then they borrow it out to others. Why might they borrow it out to others? Okay, if you ever want to buy a house, you might need to borrow money. Okay, I don't know a whole lot of people. I guess I'm not friends with the rich and famous. So I don't know a whole lot of people that have enough money to just go out and buy a house. Like hand them over a bunch of cash. They have to get a loan. Okay, if you buy a new car, most of the time you get a loan. Okay, so you put your money in the bank. A lot of us do. Okay, and the bank turns around and uses that and borrows it out to somebody else. Does that mean your money is gone? No, it's still there for you. Okay, you can still go get your money at any time. But they borrow it out to others, and in return, those people, when they borrow it out, they have to pay interest to the bank. Okay, so if I go get a loan from the bank, let's say I got a $5,000 loan, I have to pay the bank back more than $5,000. Okay, because they borrowed me the money, I have to pay it back with interest. Now, when I pay back the interest, part of that goes to you guys because you put your money in the bank. So they give you a little bit of it as like a thank you for letting us use your money. Okay, does that kind of make sense? Okay, lots of things charge interest. Banks can pay you interest if you put your money in the bank. They can also charge you interest if you borrow money. Okay, credit cards charge you very, very high interest rates. Do we know the difference between a credit card and a debit card? You guys know the difference? Okay, so they are two very, very different things. A debit card still looks just like a credit card, right? But that's money you already have. Okay, when I use my debit card, it's taking money out of my checking account. It's money I am spending that I already have. When I use a credit card, that's not my money. Whose money is that? That's a bank's money or the credit card company's money. Okay, they're borrowing me the money and I have to pay them back. Now, if I don't pay them back within a month, they charge me a super, super high interest rate, like 24.9%, which is ridiculously high. So if I borrow $100 and I don't pay it back at the end of the month, the next month I owe $125. Okay? Plus a late fee because I didn't pay anything. So credit cards can be really, really bad. If you've ever heard of people getting in big time credit card debt, That's why. Okay? And credit cards kind of try to fool you. They will send you a statement and say, you only need to pay this minimum amount. But sometimes, you guys, the minimum amount doesn't even cover the interest. So your bill just keeps getting larger and larger and larger because you're not paying enough off. Okay? So a credit card is kind of like a loan. Okay, but they can charge you a super high interest rate. Okay, so we are going to learn about simple interest today. There's really two kinds of interest. There's simple interest and compound interest. Okay, simple, it's called simple because it's really simple to do. Okay, it's a simple, easy formula. Compound interest is more difficult and complicated. We're not going to learn about that in 7th grade. Compound interest means you can pay interest on the interest. Okay, so that means the interest adds on, and the next month I have to pay interest on the purchase plus whatever interest was added on. Okay, so we're going to stick to simple interest, and this is the formula. Okay, I equals P times R times T. Okay, and we have to know what all of these things stand for. Okay, I stands for interest. Okay, interest, I want you to label these. Interest is money earned. Okay, interest is a dollar amount. If I put my money in the bank, I'm going to earn some interest at the end of the month. Okay. The P stands for principal. It's not like the principal of your school. It's not like Mr. Anderson. Okay. Principal is the initial amount of money borrowed or deposited. Okay, the initial amount of money borrowed or deposited. So if I need to take out a loan for $5,000, $5,000 is my principal amount. Okay? Or if I put $100 in the bank, that's my principal amount. Okay. R stands for rate. The rate is a percent, but it must be written as a decimal. So you can't forget to write that percent as a decimal. And I'll remind you how we do that in a second. And then the T stands for time. And the time is in years. How long are you going to borrow the money for, or how long are you going to leave it in the account for? You know, leave it in for 1 year, for 5 years, for 10 years. If you're buying a house, you maybe borrow the money for 30 years. Okay? Questions there? Okay, so as we set up these problems, we're going to read the word problems, and we have to try to find these numbers. Now, just as a reminder, when I'm looking at writing a percent as a decimal, if the rate is 7%, how do I write 7% as a decimal? Anybody remember? 0.07. Remember, you take your decimal point, which is right here, and you move it 2 places. So it's 0.07. Okay, we always have to write the percent as a decimal. So what would 4.5% be as a decimal? I know it's a decimal right now, but it's a percent. How do I write it as only a decimal? Really? Right, we're going to move it 2 places. So it's 0.045. Okay. What if it was 15%? that be as a decimal? What is 15% as a decimal? 0.15. Okay, our decimal's right here at the end. I move it to 0.15. Questions there? Okay, so let's try this. Here's the first scenario. You deposit $5,000 in an account that earns 6.5% simple interest. How much will be in the account after 3 years? Okay, so we're going to use this formula every time. I equals P times R times T. So I just put the blanks there, and I'm going to fill them in. Do I know how much interest I have earned? Do I know the I? Anywhere in this problem, does it tell me how much interest I've earned? Interest is the extra money you make. Does it tell me that? No. So I'm just going to put an I there. In that very first blank, put an I. Okay. The next blank is P. Do I know the principal? The principal is how much money you deposit or borrow. What is the principal balance?
5,000.
5,000. I'm going to put 5,000 right there. Okay, R stands for rate. The rate's a percent. What's the rate? Caleb?
6.5.
6.5. Can I put 6.5 right here? No, it says 6.5%, and we have to write that as a decimal. So what am I going to put in this blank? I'm not going to put 6.5. What am I going to put, really? 0.065. You have to write that percent as a decimal. And then the last blank is T stands for time. How long am I leaving it in the account? Tyler? 3 years. So I'm going to put a 3 there. Okay, at that point, grab your calculator. We are just going to multiply these three numbers together. 5,000 times 0.065 times 3. I equals $975. That means at the end of 3 years, I would earn an extra $975. Is that the total in the account? Brooklyn. Yeah. So the total in the account is the 5,000, right? I haven't spent that. That's still there. Plus the $975. I have $5,975 in the account. Okay. That's kind of nice, right? For doing nothing. You didn't have to work at all. You got an extra $975. Can you make a living on that? No. But also understand, the more money you have in the account, the more interest you earn. Right? Because it's a percent. The more you have, the more you're going to earn. Okay? How many of you think, oh, that's kind of nice. I don't mind that. I put money in the bank. They give me money. Life is great. Okay? All right, so let's look at this one. This one's a little better. Okay? Flip the page. Scenario 2. Okay, so you're going to go buy a new car. Let's say you just got your first job. You're all excited. You don't want to drive this crappy car anymore that you drove in high school and college. You're going to buy yourself a new car, and it costs $33,000. Okay? The sad part is most of us don't have $33,000 just laying around. I don't know people that do. Okay? So I have to go to the bank and get a loan. Okay? And they said, yeah, we'll give you a loan. Will the bank ever turn you down? Do they have the option to say, nope, I'm not giving you a loan? Yeah, Why would the bank turn you down? What do you think, Savannah? Yeah, right? If you have bad credit, you've probably heard of that. You hear that on commercials all the time, right? Check your credit score, Credit Karma, all that stuff. Okay? But if you have bad credit, the bank isn't going to give you a loan. Why not? Why might they not give you a loan? How do you get bad credit? Go ahead. You owe money, right? You don't pay your bills. That's how you get bad credit. Okay, so if you don't pay your bills and get bad credit, then the bank will say, sorry, too bad, we don't trust you. Or they might say, sure, we'll give you a loan, but we're going to charge you a much higher interest rate than somebody else. The better your credit, the lower your interest rate usually is. Okay? So, in this case, they decide they're going to give you a loan at a 5% interest rate. How much will you get charged in interest over 5 years? Okay, so we do not know the I. That's what we're trying to figure out. So I'm going to put an I in the first blank. The principal, the P, is what? How much money do I need to borrow? Shout out.
33.
33,000. So I'm going to put that in the next blank. Because I'm borrowing $33,000. The next blank is R. The rate is what? Go ahead.
5%.
5%. Do I put a 5 right here? No, I cannot put a 5 here. What am I going to put here? Remember, we need to write this as a decimal. What's 5% as a decimal? Friendly? 0.05, so that's what I put in that blank. And then the last blank is T. How long am I borrowing the money for? Krista? 5 years. Okay, grab your calculator and we're going to do this multiplying. 33,000 times 0.05 times 5. Is that what you got? I equals 8,250. What does that mean? Does that answer our question? Our question is, how much will you get charged in interest over 5 years? Does this answer the question? Yeah, this is how much interest you have to pay. You are going to get charged $8,250 in interest, in extra money. So does the car really cost you $33,000? The total you would pay is the $33,000 plus $8,250. That car really cost you $41,250. That's the total. Anybody else think that's kind of a ripoff? Yeah, a little bit, right? That's a lot of extra money. Do you really have a choice though? Probably not. Okay, so let me give you a problem that's even worse than this. Okay, how many of you at some point in time want to move out of your parents' house and have a house of your own? Okay, right? Lots of us do. That's a good thing, right? You don't want to live with your parents forever. I don't want my kids to live with me forever. I love them dearly, but at some point they gotta leave. Okay? So they are old enough to get a job. They're gonna move out. Okay, and they're gonna go buy a house. Okay, let's say they're not even gonna buy a real expensive house. Let's say you're gonna go buy a house and it's a $200,000 house. And I tell you, a $200,000 house is not a super expensive house. It's pretty average. That's pretty average. Okay? And you're going to go to the bank, and the bank has said, yep, we'll give you a loan. Interest rates are kind of low right now. Let's say you get a 3.5% interest rate. Okay? when you take out a home loan, typically you start with a 30-year loan. Okay? So really, this is our P, that's our principal, because that's how much money we need to borrow. This is our rate. This is our time. Okay, so let's fill in the blanks. Some of you might decide you want to live with your parents forever after this. Okay, I don't know the I. The P is 200,000. What should I put in for R? I can't put 3.5 there. What do I put? Tyler? 0.035. And T is 30. Okay, grab your calculator. Do the math. What'd you get? What'd you get? Friendly. Just the interest. When you multiply these three numbers, what do you get? $210,000. That's how much you pay in interest. Did you pay for the house yet? No. Brooklyn, did you just say you're not moving out?
Yep.
Your mom's gonna be super excited to hear that. Okay? This is what you guys pay in interest. This is not the house. So how much would the house cost you?
Oh gosh.
Go ahead, Brinley.
Okay, so it would be $410,000.
All together, in total, it would be $410,000. Yikes. Right? And you guys, this isn't a very big house. Some of you have dreams of living in like this huge mansion. The more expensive the house, the more interest you have to pay. Dang. How many of you are living in a box on the street at this point? Right? So yeah,
What happens when you build a house?
same thing. You usually have to take out a loan because you have to buy all the materials, right? So you'll go to the bank and they'll give you a loan to buy all the materials and pay for it being built. So you still have this big loan that you have to pay off. So it's essentially the same thing. Okay? And depending on the price of your home, it changes. Now, if you buy a more expensive house, let's say your house wasn't $200,000, but it's $350,000. More expensive house, $350,000 times 0.035 times 30 means you would pay $367,500 in interest. So your house just cost you over $500,000. Yeah, this is why sometimes your parents are like, don't write things in my house. My house cost me a lot of money, right? When we don't realize as kids how much your parents have to spend. Do we have a choice? Not really. Okay. Now, have you heard of people refinancing their house? Yes. Okay, sometimes you hear of that. People refinance to lower this. Because what happens if I can pay it off in less years? You get less interest. So if I can do 15 years instead of 30 years, I'm not going to have to pay as much interest. Okay? So the faster you can pay it off, the less interest you're going to pay. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. That's kind of the sad part of interest, right? You have to pay extra when you borrow. Here's the good part of it. Okay, your parents are so nice they decided to start a college savings account for you. And I just realized I used the wrong door in there. Whoops. A deposit of $10,000 was made to an account the year you were born. After 12 years, the account was worth $16,600. What simple interest rate did the account earn? Okay, so this time we're asked some different questions. This time we're trying to find the rate. So that means I do not know the R. So I'm going to put an R in that second blanket. Okay, I don't know that. Which ones do I know? Caleb.
The 12 years.
Yep, so that's our time. So I can put 12 in for the time. What other numbers do I know? Savannah?
You know that interest?
Okay, how much is the interest?
16,000.
Okay, be careful. So it says the account was worth $16,600. That's not the interest. That's the total amount it was worth. But can we figure out the interest? Maya? 10,000 isn't the interest. That's our deposit. So where should the 10,000 go? Is that interest or principal? Caleb?
Principal.
Principal. 10,000 goes here. 10,000 is your principal. Okay, at the end of 12 years, this is what it's worth. How much interest was earned? If you started with $10,000 and ended at $16,600, how much interest did you earn? Savannah?
6,000.
Yeah. If this is the total, and you take away the 10,000 that you started with, that means the interest is 6,600. Okay, now we need to solve this. We need to find the R. How do we solve this? Any ideas? Do we remember how to do equations like this? Okay, so look at the right-hand side. I know that these numbers aren't together, but I can multiply these two numbers. What's 12 times 10,000? That is 120,000 times R equals 6,600. What do I do to get the R by itself? How do I solve that? This is multiplying. What's the opposite of multiplying? Caleb.
Divided.
Divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 120,000. Make sure you put this in your calculator in the right way. Okay, you got to type the first number first. 6,600 first, divided by 120,000. I get 0.055 equals R. What's the interest rate? That's the decimal. What's the percent? What is that as a percent? Caleb.
5.5%.
It is a 5.5% interest rate. Okay. Questions there? Okay, so we had to do a little bit of math there and work around to get the R by itself. Okay, so you might see problems like that on your homework. You might also see one like this. Cindy deposited an amount of money in a savings account that earned 6.3% simple interest. After 20 years, she had earned $5,922 in interest. What was her initial deposit? Which one am I missing this time? Am I missing the I, the P, the R, or the T? What am I missing, Tyler? The P. I don't know the P, so I'm going to put P right there. Okay, so can anybody tell me the I? What's the interest? Tyler? $5,922. Okay, what's the R? What should I put in for R? Caleb?
0.63.
Good. 0.063, because I need to change this to a decimal, which means move your decimal over to 0.063. And the T is what? Shout out. 20 years. Okay, so same type of thing. I'm going to draw a line by the equal sign. On the right-hand side, I'm going to multiply the numbers I can. I can multiply 0.063 times 20. So I have P times 1.26 equals 5,922. How do I get the P by itself? Caleb.
Times, no, divide by
Divide, right? This is multiplying, so I need to divide
1.26.
by 1.26. So you're going to use your calculator, do 5,922 divided by 1.26. Okay, so $4,700 equals P. That means that's what she started with. Okay, she started with $4,700. Did she end with $5,922? No, that's just how much interest she earned. So altogether, she has over $10,000. Is that a lot of money? I don't know, it took her 20 years to get there though. Right, so not a ton of money, but still better than what she started with. Questions there? Okay, last one. You deposit $4,000 in an account that earns 4% simple interest. How long before the total amount is $6,400? Okay, so we're going to set up our, I'm just going to draw my blanks. I equals P times R times T. Can you tell me any of those numbers? I, P, R, or T? Which ones do we know? Really? The R is 4%. So should I put a 4 right here? Not a 4. What should I put here? Brinley. 0.04. Remember, you have to write it as a decimal. Okay, what other numbers do I know? Tyler. The P is 4,000. That's what we start with. Okay. Well, if I read the question, it says how long. So that means I don't know the T. I'm going to put a T there. Is the interest 6,400? Here's where you have to be careful. Okay, here this says this is the total amount. So this is the total, it's the principal plus the interest. So what's the interest? If 6,400 is the total, and you started with $4,000, what's the interest? Really? 2,400. I have to take the total minus the 4,000 that you started with. So that's the interest. Okay, I'm going to draw a line by the equal sign. On the right-hand side, I'm going to multiply what I can. 4,000 times 0.04 is 160 times T equals 2,400. How do I finish solving this? What do I have to do to finish this? Caleb,
Divide by 160 and you should.
divide by 160. So 2,400 divided by 160. T equals 15. That means we would have to leave the money in the account for 15 years to get to that total amount. 15 years is a long time, right? So you can't just decide, I'll just put some money in the bank and I'll live off the interest. You're not going to make it very long. Okay? Questions there? Okay.